Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyagravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo bhashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So I think we're starting the 26th chapter. Is that correct?
No, actually, I was wrong. We're on verse 24, 25 in chapter 26 on page 273.
Page 273. Puneet, will you help us out tonight?
Sukha dukha kalaspando bandho jivasya netaraha tadabhavo hi moksha syat iti dvedha vyavasthitihi. The movement of the divisions called pleasure and grief is the bondage of the individual soul. Nothing else is. Its absence only could be liberation.
Yeah.
Thus is the arrangement in two ways. There's a note, pretty long note.
Go ahead.
The question of the king in verse 23-24 raises the doubt as to how the realized sage Narada could have become the victim of passion. This is opposed to the doctrine of Vedanta and the experience of saints and sages, as clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita, quote, "The objects of senses drop out for the abstinent man, though not the taste or longing for them. Even the longing ceases, having perceived the supreme," end quote. But Kumbhaka's reply in verse 25-26 makes the position clear. When pleasure and pain afflict the individual, he is not liberated. When he is liberated, he is neither drawn towards pleasure nor repelled by pain. He is fulfilled in his own self, which is pure consciousness. Evidently, Narada, mentioned in this narrative, had not attained to the supreme beatitude, which makes one eternally free.
So I think it's more of a literary device. I wouldn't worry about it. But what I would like to talk about is something that Nisargadatta Maharaj says. And the words here are sukham, dukkam. Dukkam is suffering, sukham is pleasure or happiness. He says and this is through the world. When I engage with the world and I think that person, place, thing, or situation over there, that's the source of my happiness. And that person, place, thing, or situation is the source of my sorrow. First of all, the cause of that is spiritual ignorance. And what I've done is adhyasa, superimposition. I've superimposed my own self-nature onto the names and forms. And what Nisargadatta Maharaj says, sukham and dukkam are the same thing. If I attach to a person, place, thing, or situation in the world, I will suffer. Now, as a yogi, you can do anything you want if you're willing to pay the price. Go ahead, get all attached to the world, knock yourself out. But no, sukham and dukkam are like the heads and tails of a coin. Now, the problem is, most of us are more than willing to attempt to renounce our misery. Few of us, though, are willing to renounce our attachment. And if it's working for a while, oh, I get so identified and so attached. Now, Shrunahu, listen carefully. In the end, desire is not an impediment to self-realization. Let me show you the difference. The fool dances with the object, and with desire and object, with desire become one. Oh, you have made me so happy. And I want to repeat it. And then I want to grab it and hold it. And when the inevitable happens, bloop, the yogi may dance with the object. And when desire and object of desire become one. Krishna, Krishna. As long as you are very clear, your own mind, that you just used the object to get a mediated experience of the bliss of the self. Then you can dance with the object, and it will not cause an attachment to develop. The world is not something to be afraid of. One has to be very careful. Think about, oh, Vairagya, supreme detachment, blah, 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 blah. Got to be careful about this nasty old world. It's going to grab you. No, 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 no. But we can't fool ourselves. We have to cultivate a deep samadhi, which we can frame in a different language, a non-mediated experience of the self. At the end, we don't want to be attached to samadhi either. But you can't renounce something you haven't got. Why is samadhi of value? Because of the ruthless rule of the mind. The ruthless rule of the mind is it will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. The mind is a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. Now, thank God, God is the most beloved, or we'd all be screwed. But you have to have that direct experience, not just theoretical. Otherwise, when the money comes, there's your attachment. Or the lover comes, there's the attachment. Or the promotion comes, there's the attachment. Any thoughts on this? Thinking, I can feel it. Am I wrong?
I'm always thinking.
But did you have a thought you wanted to share?
No.
I heard a thought coming. Anybody in Zoom land have thoughts on this?
Jim, I have a question. This is Fang.
Hi, Fang.
Hi, Jim. My question is this: how do you know for sure that you're not completely attached? I ask this because sometimes I feel like, oh, I think I'm not as attached, but then something happens and I realize I'm actually much more attached than I thought I was. Like, how do you actually know for certain when, for example, like you still have whatever it is that maybe you're attached to?
It's very simple. If my heart moves, I'm fooling myself. You don't have to worry, because life will continue to show up. You know that your detachment, and ultimately it comes through insight, is mature and complete when the objects pass through and they don't cause any agitation. If I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the attachment. I'm the one with the identification. Now listen carefully. That does not mean that the world and its people are not oftentimes quite wrong. Your boss may be a jerk. You may have an abusive parent. We never say that the world and its people are not oftentimes quite wrong. But if I'm disturbed, I'm the one with the problem. That's axiomatic. So don't worry about it, Fang. You'll find out.
Thanks, Jim.
You may think, oh, I'm pretty clear on this issue, and you're moving through life, and all of a sudden you have a moment where you get really reactive. And you go, oh, look at that. No blame, such is the nature of the mind. Viveka, Vairagya, practice those practices. Any other thoughts or questions? And we don't have to worry about self-delusion if we hang on to that spiritual axiom. It's real clear. So if I'm on the pleasure side and I think, oh, I'm not getting attached, I'm just enjoying, and I'm really, seeing that it's all Krishna, then when it changes, if you're left, oh God, I was fooling myself. No blame, just do the tapas. Do the tapas. And ultimately, we develop mature dispassion not through willpower, but through insight. Gross example, but a very vivid one. So the alcoholic, just as they're hitting bottom, thinks, if you had my problems, you drink too. The alcohol is my only friend. And their health has been shattered, and their friends have left them, and they have no job, and they're getting evicted. You know, you drink too if you had my problems. And they do not see that the alcohol, the drinking, is what's causing the problems, the misery. Then intervention happens, they're sent into rehab, they come out, they start going to 12-step program. All of a sudden, they're at a friend's wedding. And it's free Dom Perignon champagne. Oh, champagne. Oh, just one glass. So what do? You think the drink through. Did I ever have just one glass of anything? No. What happens once I start on a run? Whoosh, crash and burn. Is that what I want? Through a steady observation of their defects. That's how Shankara puts it. Where is that dance with the objects of the senses going to take me? I'm going to go there today. Is that helpful?
Yes, Jim, thank you.
This is what Swamiji used to call sublimation, as opposed to repression. Repression doesn't work. It makes you depressed. Sublimation is when you give up a lesser desire for a greater one. I really, really want the sweater. But if I buy it, I'm going to overdraw my account. I can't really afford it. Which do I want more, the sweater or balanced finances? Put it off for a month. Sublimate the lesser desire in favor of a greater desire. Do I want to go dance with the objects of the senses? And knowing my own mind, why? Because I paid attention. Do I want to go down that rabbit hole? Do I want some peace? And again, back to what I said at the beginning. As a yogi, you can do anything you want, as long as you're willing to pay the price. Next verse.
Rajavacha atyuttaram mahascharyam vakshim tvam vadatamvara kintu tavat samasena tavotpatti vadhadyame tata shoshyami yatnena jnanagarbhagiram tava. The king said, best of speakers on spiritual truth, you tell me of a very splendid and great marvel. But tell me now briefly before you proceed about your origin. Thereafter, I shall hear carefully your words full of knowledge.
So remember, we're back to the story of Chudala and her husband. And she gets enlightened. And hubby says, you run the kingdom. And he runs off to the forest to do rituals. And she, I love the language, the desire for siddhis arose in her. Again, it's a literary device. But she knows that he's a male chauvinist pig. And he's not going to listen to his wife, let alone any woman. You married people out there, Can you relate to this? Anyway, so to solve the problem, she changes herself into this young Brahmin ascetic, Kumbha. And so that's who the king's talking to. So she said, this is my origins. It's the literary device. I wouldn't worry about whether Narada is like it or not. Going on.
Kumbha uvacha Shirena purite kumbhe munina virya marpitam masat sampurna samvagam kumbha chaham vinargataha. Kumbha said, the generative fluid was placed by the sage in a pot filled with milk, and I came out of the pot in a month with all my limbs fully grown.
Okay. So, this is, it's a literary device, but that's how the ascetic comes about in this miraculous way. I do not suggest you follow the scripture and start preserving your seminal fluid in pots.
IVF of those days.
Pardon me?
It's the IVF of those days.
Yes. Going on.
Mam patram vikshya vedhascha chakara jnana paragam tatoham kumbha namasmin yatha kamam charamyaham astam esha katha tavat katvam adrau karoshikim. Having seen me, the grandson, Brahma, the creator god, made me profoundly learned, or one who has gone to the limit of knowledge. Therefore, I am named Kumbha, literally the pot, and I go about at will. Let this story remain as it is. In the meanwhile, who are you? What do you do in the mountain?
So one of the things Chudala has done, she's just spinning a yarn here. None of this that she said is true, but she knows that hubby is a spiritual romantic. Miracle. That means he's going to have more faith in the ascetic. Meaning he's more likely to take what she, in the guise of Kumbha, says more seriously. There's some interesting psychology there. I'm going through a wonderful book called The Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And this first section is about the relationship with the Guru. And he's talking about if you meet the Guru and, people will come to him because he's the 11th reincarnation of the Trungpa Rinpoche. Long lineage of Tibetan Buddhism and secret doctrine. But if he had met somebody in line at the grocery store or in a restaurant, they would probably not take him too seriously. So we've got to find something in between here. The spiritual romanticism. Ooh, Guruji. Swamiji just found that stuff ridiculous. One of the things that I just think is sad and funny at the same time. His title now in the Chinmaya mission is Puja Gurudev, which literally means worshipful, godlike teacher. His essence was that, but at the human being level, he was just Swamiji. He was our spiritual friend. We had great love and respect for him. But he wanted us to meet him eye to eye, to ask him questions. And again, I love this old Latin phrase that comes from Irish monastic traditions of what a spiritual director was. Amicus alma, a friend of my soul. That's what the word is. But the king here is a spiritual romantic and in moralism. Unless Chudala gives him a little razzle-dazzle. Let's go on with our story. She's now asked him, what's your story?
Raja Uvacha Sansara Bhayabhitatvat Nivasami Varantare Shikhid Vajoham Bhupala Yaktva Rajyam Iha Sthitaha Dukkhad Gacchami Dukkhaudam Karvunappi Kriyamimam. The king said, I dwell inside the forest, afraid of the danger of worldly existence. I am the king Shikhidvaja, staying here, having given up my kingdom. Though performing all these religious rites, I go from sorrow to a multitude of sorrows.
So notice that his renunciation of his kingdom, very interesting language. He's afraid of worldly existence. Now that's understandable. Even Shankara will say things like avoid external objects from a distance. Give up your fascination for clan, for family, for wealth, for kin, for caste, all of that. And frequently, people get great value by leaving the world for a while and going to an ashram. There's value in that. But in the end, the world is not a place that can entrap us unless we are in ignorance. The world's not bad. It's also not good. It's shunyata. It's void. It's not scary. It's Brahman in the end. So what is he doing? He's trying to be a spiritual goody-goody. So he's left the kingdom and he's there in the forest being so spiritual, doing religious ritual. Next verse.
Section 3. Chintamanyu Pakyanam. The story of Chintamani, the wish-fulfilling gem. Kumbha Vacha Jnanam hi paramam shreya Kevalyam tena labhyate alam jnana drishtinam kriyatu syat parayanam. Kumbha said, knowledge alone is the supreme good or beatitude. By that, Kaivalya or perfect isolation, that is detachment of the individual soul from its material coverings and identification with the Supreme Spirit is obtained. But to those who have not obtained the perception of knowledge, religious rite could be the principal object.
So this Chintamani, this wish-fulfilling gem, what it is Atma Vidya, knowledge of the self. If you have knowledge of the self, the world's not a scary place. But if you don't, religious practices are a good preparatory exercise. We've talked about this so many times. Preparatory exercises, your karma yoga, your bhakti yoga, your religious rituals, chanting, japa, selfless service, withdrawal from the world, so that the mind can become quiescent, become sattvic. Then Atma Vichara is effective. I would say, to quote Paramahansa Yogananda, ashrams are for weak lovers of the Lord. Where we need to withdraw from the world in order to do sadhana. But in the end, you cannot avoid love. It is possible, very possible, to do your sadhana while in the world. Now, the detachment still has to be there. I had a student once who was getting into Tantra, and they were saying, well, I thought you could have your cake and eat it too if you did Tantra, follow that path. And I said, well, it's true and it's not true. Both Tantra, diving into the world, and sannyasa, giving up the world, lead to the same place, mature vairagya. That's why Swamiji used to say, go after the world. Let it drop you again and again. It's the only way to kill the ego. The way of Tantra, which is going after the world, is the more painful path. We develop some humility because we get a healthy helping of humble pie. What do I mean? When you get your heart broken, when you get profoundly disappointed, when you get outrageously angry. If you're woke, if you're conscious, you see the inevitable results going after. Sannyasi sees their friend go after the world and crash and burn and suffer and cry and go, I don't need to do that. I don't have to drag my heart through the mud. I can take the easier, softer way. Let go. Go. But both paths end in the same place. Any thoughts on this? So, what Sikadvaja has been doing out there in the forest is not wasted. It's just not going to ultimately deliver the goods. It's preparatory work. And now Chudala aka Kumbha, is showing up to finish him off. Going on.
Vasana matra saratvat agyasya safala kriyaha jnanino vasana nashat aphala sakala kriyaha. Religious rites or rituals are fruitful to one devoid of knowledge on account of the strength of the totality of their mental impressions. To one possessed of knowledge on account of the destruction of mental impressions, all rituals are unfruitful or useless.
Yes. Tapas Swadhyayeshwara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. Austerity, self-examination, trustful surrender to God is yoga in action. What does ritual do? It helps us turn the mind, tapas, away from its habituated negative thinking into devotional, positive ways of thinking, thought replacement. But in and of itself, it does not bestow freedom. It just quietens things down enough so that Atma Vichara is possible. And for the woman or man of wisdom, ritual gives them nothing. Now, doesn't mean that the woman or man of wisdom may not engage in ritual to be socially appropriate, or just because it's joyful. But it's not about getting something. Any thoughts? Bless you.
Thank you.
Do atheists say bless you when someone sneezes?
Yes, purely out of habit.
Very funny. Next verse.
Yasyagyattvam shayam yati sarvam brahmeti bhavanat nodeti vasana tasya pragnyasye vam buddhi marao. To one whose ignorance is destroyed by the cognition or direct knowledge, quote, all is Brahman or the Supreme Spirit, quote, mental impressions do not rise just as the idea or conception of water does not arise in relation to a sandy desert for a wise man.
So for the ordinary person, the reference here is to the mirage waters. Sandy desert, it may look like water, but no. It's just heat waves off the sand. So also, for the person who is sthita prajna, as steady wisdom. Now, let's take a little side tour to Vivekachudamani. Shankara addresses what I call the yo-yo state. Yo-yo state is, I'm here in class, my mind gets tuned up, the Vedanta works me. I look behind my eyes and notice the knower. Chidakasha. Chidananda Rupa. But get out there in the world And I forget that I'm Brahman, and I think I'm Jim or Daniel or whatever. There's idea, your jiva bhavana, this feeling that I'm a person. So he says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression of vasana, that one is karta bhokta cha, that one is the doer and the enjoyer, here meaning experiencer. He says in that verse, which is the cause for rebirth, what he means there is I re-identify. That's what causes me to get hooked and attached. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't. It needs to be conscientiously rooted out. Steady and continuous identification with the self. What do we mean there? When I'm triggered, when I'm identified, do my very best to remember, to whom does this feeling occur? Oh, to me. Koham, who am I? Oh, that's right. I remember who I am. Drop it, Jim. I see my mind jonesing. Oh, I want. Mudha, fool. Just the force of the past maturing, that's all it is. What's my essential nature? Satchidananda Rupa. Bring the mind back. Own your ananda. Don't let the mind out of habit. I want widget. If only I had widgets, it'd be so much better. All my friends have widgets. Look how happy they are. That's what we do. And then he ends that verse. It's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. And in his discourse on the qualifications of a fit student, he says a person who is medha, who has a keen memory. And that doesn't mean just that you can remember a scripture and quote it back. That can be of value. At least remember the idea. But even more importantly, when we're engaged in life and guru as a principle shows up as the condition where my attachment and identification shows up, can I remember to do my jnana abhyasa, my practice? All those vasanas are. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sansara tarakam jnanam tvam kim ajnanavan sthitah koham katham idam jyatam katham va shambhati dhruvam.
Koham katamidam. I like that.
Katham bandha katham moksha iti prashnan udaharan paravara vedam padan kasmat rajan na sevase. Knowledge protects or delivers one from the course of worldly existence. Why do you remain spiritually ignorant? Quote, who am I? How was this objective universe born? How does this cease surely? How is bondage produced? How is liberation obtained? End quote. Thus uttering questions or making inquiry, O king, why do you not serve or follow the feet of the knowers of the nearer and the further bank of this ocean of worldly existence?
Yes. So should I chant Hanuman Chalisa? Should I make a pilgrimage to Badrinath? You may. Oh, I want to go see Amaji, the hugging guru. You may. But far more useful is the inquiry, these questions that he's putting forward. Let's go through the list again, because it's really a good one. The first one, Koham, right?
Who am I?
Who am I? Ramana Maharshi didn't make it up. That's what scripture invites us to do. Who am I? Anything that can be objectively known is an Atman. I am never the knower. Katamidam, is that the next one?
How was this born?
What is this world, literally, isn't it?
How was this objective universe born?
Yeah. How does it come about? It comes about like a dream. It comes about like the images in the mirror. It comes about like a hologram. And the next question?
How does this cease surely?
How do I make the world cease? Stop the mind and you stop the world. You always take this in two ways. Nirvikalpa Samadhi. If I attain the mind state of no mind, individuality is gone and so is the world. It's like deep sleep. Deep sleep, there's no individuality and no world, but there's still ignorance. The ignorance is gone too. But more importantly, to see the world for what it is. Snake in the rope is like Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When you apprehend the rope, no snake. But Sahaja Samadhi is like the mirage waters in the desert. When you realize there's no water there, it just looks like water. Then you're not dependent on escaping the world into meditation. This is what it means when Lord Shiva opens his eyes, his third eye, and turns the world to ashes. Seen, but not real. Next idea.
How is bondage produced?
How is bondage produced? Back to our idea of indiscriminate revelry with the dances of the senses. Vasana is my problem. Vasana in general. Vasanas are created when I indiscriminately, egoistically dance with the world. When I engage with the world with I-ness and minus. That leaves an impression of vasana, which has two powers. The first is veiling power, Avana Shakti. It robs me of self-experience. And Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. Jiva Bhavana immediately arises with the perceived world. They are dependent origination. They rise together. And I've got kartavya, serious business. I'll be happy when, it can be better if only. So the root of the problem is avidya. It's ignorance. Actions do not dispel ignorance. Oh, I've got a math test on Monday. I think I'll do a bunch of jumping jacks. Won't do you any good. I'm going to go jogging. Why? I have a math test on Monday. Have you gained the knowledge of math? Knowledge dispels ignorance. Next idea.
How is liberation obtained?
Yes. If my problem is ignorance, the solution is jnanam. No. Answer those questions. Who am I? What is this world? How does it come about? Going on.
Rajovacha Aho no bodhitosmahyam tvam me mitram guru pita yat udaratattam vetsi yasmin jnate na shochyate bhavami nirvrito yena tat brahmopadishashu me. The king said, "Ah, I have indeed been instructed by you today. You are my friend, teacher, and father. Teach me immediately that Brahman, which you know as the most exalted, knowing which one does not grieve, and by which I shall be satisfied."
So now he's done something that's rather intelligent, even though if he does it a bit with a bunch of romanticism. He surrenders. When Arjuna finishes whining, I think it's like the 9th or 10th verse in the second chapter. He says, I don't know what to do, but you are my friend, you are my teacher. I surrender to you. Tell me what I need to know. So Sikidvaja is now surrendering to Kumbha, who's really his wife, Chudala. Let's see what happens.
Kumbhavacha Yadhyupadeya Vakyoham Rajarshe Tatvadami Te Anyatha Kedadha Proktam Api Syat Viphalam Vachah. Kumbha said, "Kingly sage, if I am one whose words are acceptable, then I shall tell you. Otherwise, though explained in various ways, the words can be fruitless or ineffectual."
So if you are not open, if you're not willing to open to the teacher and surrender, Krishna himself can be in front of you and it won't do you any good. So Kumbha says, if you're willing to listen, if you will go where my mind goes. There's a very interesting discussion back in the qualifications of a fit student. So we have Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi, Guna. Remember the gang of six, and then Mumukshutva. In the gang of six, Shama, Adi, Guna, qualities of Shama, etc. There's Shraddha. What's Shraddha mean?
Faith.
faith. But the Sanskrit has a deeper meaning than the English. Shankara says it is by this means alone that the truth is made evident for the student. So it means not only do I have faith in the scriptures, but I have faith that the practices will produce results. It's simple faith. It's like I have faith when I start the car, it's going to go. Faith when I turn the switch on, the light's going to go on. It's like this. If I describe being up in Marin County at Muir Woods on a summer day, and it's hot, and you hear the birds, there's a lot of just nature noises, buy your ticket, you go inside the redwoods. All of a sudden, the temperature drops 10 degrees. And the bark of the redwoods are insect resistant. There's no bugs. Because there's no bugs, there's almost no birds. So it's like a cathedral. It's so quiet. Any of you had that experience? Yes?
Yes.
Now, your capacity to go where my mind went when I was describing your woods is your Shraddha. There's no word for that capacity in English. It's how we can appreciate music. You hear an instrumental piece of music and you go, oh man, that was such a glorious piece. Or, oh, that third movement was so sad. How is it that the composer and the orchestra was able to have you have some kind of a resonating experience? Or with poetry. Are you getting what I'm trying to communicate? If you are, that's your Shraddha. This is how knowledge is transmitted. We surrender, we tune up our minds. Can you go where the teacher goes? Can you see as the teacher sees? Swamiji used to say, meet me there. The capacity to do that is your Shraddha. That's when the magic of transmission happens. There's a word in Sanskrit, abhisheka. What does abhisheka mean?
Some kind of ritual.
What would you guys say?
Offering?
Ritual offering.
Well, it's, you know what? You have a Shiva Lingam and they do abhisheka. What do?
They pour milk on it too.
They do what?
They pour milk on it.
Yes.
Or honey and
It's like an
flowers.
anointing. It comes down. You see. It's also a term that's used for initiation. We normally think of Diksha as initiation, but Abhisheka is also a term for initiation. So you can tune up your mind. And we use the scripture as a bridge. And you can go where the scripture points. And Mother Shakti does her abhisheka. And you are the Murti. You are the idol. And Shakti pours. Beautiful, beautiful imagery. So all of this is inherent in this whole idea of surrender, of shraddha, of tuning up. Go where the teacher goes. Some of you this will make perfect sense. For others, oh, I think I get it, but I'm not sure. Don't worry about it. Next verse.
Sarvashastrartha tatvagnyam asit kaschit muni pura anantyantna sansadhye sachintamani sadhane ativa yatnavan bhutva hastaprapya dadarshatam. In former times, there was a certain ascetic who was the knower of the true meaning of all the scriptures. Having become very diligent in the attainment of Chintamani, the fabulous gem, yielding to its possessor all desires, which ought to be accomplished by endless effort, he saw that gem easily accessible to the hand.
Who said this? Is this the Raja?
Kumbha.
Kumbha. Okay. So this is all metaphor here. So going on, let's see what she's driving at.
Kimtu sanshayamapanno na jagraha manintada aham alpatapa sadhu varako manusha kila siddhaya katham ayanti mam abhagyaika bhajanam iti tasmin sthite mudhe yato mani adrishyatam. But fallen into doubt, he did not seize the gem at that time. Quote, I am one with little penance to my credit, an ascetic, a wretched or unfortunate person, and indeed human. How do accomplishments or prosperity come to me, the repository of only misfortunes? End quote. When that stupid man stood thus, the gem became invisible.
Yes. So this is metaphor. Let me tell you a true story. So in 1994, when I was traveling throughout India, kind of retracing much of Swamiji's spiritual journey, I was in Kerala, and I'd been hanging out at the Adi Shankara Nilayam, the birthplace of Shankara. And I made a side trip to Amaji's ashram, the Hugging Guru, a great saint. And I was there, I think, for like 10 days, wasn't very long. But while I was there, she was in residence, and thousands and thousands of people from all over the world would come to her. Now, this is a great Mahatma. If people had been studying the scriptures, ask the Guru what it is that you need to do to be liberated. Open to her to receive this kripa, this grace, this abhisheka. Oh, Amaji, my daughter is going to get married. Should she marry this fellow? Oh, Amaji, shall I go into business with this fellow? These are the questions that people brought to this Mahatma. Stupid. There was the possibility of the Chintamani, the great wish-fulfilling gem. Wouldn't you like to know what is the source of all happiness and realize that you have it always. No, 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 no. I'd rather make sure my daughter gets married. That's what the scripture is talking about. Any thoughts? Next verse.
एष भूय क्रियायत्नं कुर्वं रत्नेन्द्र साधने ददर्शार्थ कचद्रुपं काचखण्डम् अखण्डितम्. This man, again taking the effort of rituals in the attainment of the king of gems, saw afterwards an unbroken piece of glass shining in appearance.
So this fellow sees a piece of glass and he thinks this is good stuff. So also the king, at the moment he walked out of the palace, had sannyas. But instead of inquiring into his self along the lines of the scripture, went to ritual. Trying to gain punya, merit. Thinking that's what's going to do it. Another true story. There's a person that I know from the Chinmaya mission. Were a brahmachari. It was a woman. Took the brahmachari training course. Worked for decades with the mission. And was always very, very unhappy. And she got in this discussion with another friend of mine who asked her, "What is it that you want?" And she said, "I want to be like the saints." Oh, golly. That isn't it. Don't try to be an enlightened person. That's a piece of glass. Instead, realize that you are Brahman. And let the Lord take care of your equipment. You have no relationship to it. Now this person had yearned to take sannyas for decades and decades and decades. Finally, frankly, as a reward for all her service, she was in sannyas. Make her really happy. Wearing the different clothes and having a different name didn't fix it. All right, how much more in this section? Because it's 9 o'clock.
2 more verses.
Okay. Can you hang for a couple more minutes? Let's do it.
तत तम्मणिम् आदाय रक्तनीं सश्रियं जहौ सर्वं चिन्तामणे अस्मात् प्राप्यते किं धने इति. Then, taking that gem-like glass, he relinquished his former wealth, saying thus, quote, everything is obtained from this gem Chintamani. What is the use of riches, end quote.
So again, this is a reference to the king leaving his palace and then taking up ritual, thinking it is the thing of great value. And in the end, that will not deliver it. Actions will not produce liberation because actions are not opposed to or in conflict with ignorance. Knowledge bestows liberation because the problem is ignorance. The last verse.
Adayaitam manim modha shunyakanaya mayayao sabka chamarnina tatra mahatim apadam gataha. Taking this gem-like glass, the stupid man came to a desolate forest. There he fell into great danger on account of that gem-like glass.
Yes. So he thinks the gem, like glass, has powers that it doesn't. So you and I think that being a goody-goody is going to fix it. I'm just going to discipline myself and control myself. That's going to fix it. And then what always happens, oops. So let's next week continue with this very good story. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.